Welcome back to the CryptoWorld channel, everyone. My name is Josh, and right now, major divergences are happening on the Bitcoin chart, while the US dollar index is continuing the dump to the downside. And on top of that, Ethereum is about to confirm a new pattern in the short term, while Solana is continuing to play out this short-term pattern, which I'll talk about later in the video, so definitely watch to the end. First of all, just giving you a quick update here on the weekly Bitcoin chart, and right now the price of Bitcoin is still running into that major area of resistance in between around 36k to 38k, and of course, as of right now, we're still technically within the much larger bullish trend here on the weekly time frame. And so essentially, even if we do see short-term bearish price action or a short-term bearish trend like what we saw back here, for example, technically speaking, that can still occur within the much larger bullish trend. And if you're taking a look at the daily Bitcoin chart, of course, this bearish divergence is still here. We have higher highs in the price and lower highs in the RSI once again. And so, like I said in my last video here on the channel, this is telling us that the short-term bullish trend here on the daily time frame is beginning to lose momentum. And so basically, the most likely outcomes that we usually end up seeing from a bearish divergence is either choppy sideways price action, so basically a sideways consolidation, or a pullback in the price of Bitcoin over the next few weeks. And also, if you're taking a look at the daily Bitcoin MACD, just recently, this has begun to actually reverse in the other direction. So of course, a few weeks ago, we had a lot of bullish momentum, but now the MACD and the moving average are beginning to drop back to the downside, and the histogram has just crossed back into the red, which once again is another signal pointing towards the lack in bullish momentum. Basically, the momentum in the bullish direction is slowing down, and the probability of seeing a pullback at some point within the next few weeks or at some point over the next 1 month or so is increasing. But remember, even if that plays out, remember that can still occur within the much larger bullish trend. So here on the weekly time frame, I'm still very bullish. It's just worth keeping in mind, of course, we can experience short-term pullbacks within a larger bullish trend. And now, even though due to this bearish divergence and the lack in momentum in the MACD is telling us we could be due to see either a sideways consolidation or pullback in the coming weeks, we might not necessarily see a massive pullback simply because the DXY or US dollar index is continuing the dump to the downside. And basically, while the US dollar is losing value relative to other currencies, this makes it very easy for the price of Bitcoin to actually go to the upsides, because as you can see on this daily Bitcoin chart, the candlesticks is the price of Bitcoin, and this red line is the DXY or US dollar index. And basically, all you need to know is when the DXY is going to the upside, that is usually bearish for Bitcoin, and when the DXY is going to the downside, that is usually bullish for Bitcoin. And so essentially, when the DXY or US dollar index is dumping, as it has been recently and is continuing to do right now, it makes it very difficult for the price of Bitcoin to experience any significant pullback. Of course, we can see these slight pullbacks just in the short term, like what we've seen over the last 1 week or so. We saw that slight pullback, but essentially, while the DXY is dumping, I would not necessarily expect a massive pullback in the price of Bitcoin. For that, I would like to see the DXY actually reverse back to the upside before expecting any significant pullback. And now, if you're zooming into the shorter term, looking at the 8-hour Bitcoin chart, obviously over the last few weeks, the price of Bitcoin has still been trending to the upside, forming higher lows and higher highs in this ascending parallel channel. And really, we've only seen some minor dumps in the price of Bitcoin along the way, along this short-term bullish trend. But with that being said, what we've seen just recently is some new divergences show up here on the 8-hour Bitcoin chart. For example, we do have this previous hidden bullish divergence where we have higher lows in the price and lower lows in the RSI. And on top of that, we have this bearish divergence on the 8-hour Bitcoin chart, once again confirmed higher highs in the price in the candle closes, while also confirming lower highs in the RSI. And so overall, considering this is a regular bearish divergence and a hidden bullish divergence, technically speaking, this is overall slightly more bearish than bullish in terms of the divergence, because essentially, while the price is going to the upside, if we're seeing price oscillators diverge back to the downside, this is a sign of weakness in the bullish trend, basically showing us that the momentum is slowing down. But with that being said, even though we're due to see some sort of pause from this short-term bullish trend, either a sideways consolidation or potentially a bit of a pullback, we have not yet confirmed any bearish trend reversal, because for that, at least in the short-term trend, we would need to see at least a break below this ascending line of support, which is currently sitting at around 35.4k to 35.5k. Because basically, if we see a confirmed break below that line of support, then obviously that would be a bearish signal by itself. Anytime where we break support, that is bearish, and also that would be forming a lower low below this previous low, which would also be a short-term bearish signal. And so basically, that would be the signal to watch out for to potentially flip a little bit more bearish in the short term in terms of the trend. But technically speaking, the momentum is already beginning that shift in the more bearish direction with a lack in momentum right now. But once again, I want to make it very clear that everything that's happening here in the short term does not really impact what is happening on the weekly time frame. And so like I've been saying almost every day since the very beginning of this year, here on the much larger time frames, I'm still leaning very much bullish on the price of Bitcoin when you're talking about over the multiple months or years from now. But if we do end up seeing a short-term break to the downside below that short-term line of support, then in that case, we could potentially see a move down towards around $34,000. Because if you're looking at the Bitcoin liquidation heat map based on the Binance BTC to USDT perpetuals futures contract, we can see a lot of liquidations, a lot of liquidity, in fact, billions of dollars of liquidity sitting right at around $34,000 per Bitcoin. And usually what we end up seeing is the price of Bitcoin gets attracted towards these liquidation zones, and oftentimes these can act as support as well, because essentially the whales out there trading with a lot of money move the price towards these liquidation zones to fill their large positions, because once again, that's where a lot of liquidity is sitting at. And so if we do end up seeing that short-term bearish scenario play out with a confirmed break below that support, which obviously has not happened as of right now, but if we do end up seeing that scenario begin to play out, then once again, we could potentially see a drop down towards around $34,000. And if you want to trade that move, if it begins to play out, if we start seeing a break to the downside below this support, you can trade that move over on Bybit, which is the exchange that I use to trade those type of moves. Because believe it or not, you can actually profit from the price of Bitcoin going to the downside with a short position. But personally, I would not enter into a short position right now in anticipation of that happening. I would be waiting for confirmation of a break below that line of support, which as of right now has not yet happened. And I'll make sure to leave a link to Bybit in the description down below and in the pinned comment. And in fact, if you use that link down below this video to make a Bybit account, you can get up to a $30,000 deposit bonus just by using that link and making a deposit. But unfortunately, there's some countries around the world where you may not be able to access Bybit due to regulations. And so if that's the case, there is also Bitflex, which is another crypto exchange just like Bybit, but you do not need KYC. And so I'll also make sure to leave a link to Bitflex down below this video. And if you actually use that link and deposit 100 USDT and make one trade over on Bitflex, you can get 10 USDT for free as a bonus, which you can actually withdraw if you want to. And so if you're going to trade crypto anyway, you might as well check that out in the description down below and in the pinned comments for those extra deposit bonuses. But anyway, getting into the Ethereum part of this video, this is on the weekly time frame, and obviously just recently we've seen a perfect rejection from this important area of resistance going up towards around 2150, which is the high end of this resistance. But overall, we are still forming significant higher lows here on the weekly time frame and forming a bullish pattern and ascending triangle pattern. And so once again, like I said earlier, for Bitcoin, even if we see a short-term rejection and pullback in the short term, that does not necessarily change what is happening here on the much larger time frames. But if you're taking a look at the daily ETH to US dollar charts over the last one day, we have actually seen a slight break to the downside below the 23.6% Fibonacci level of support, which was sitting at around 1970. And so if this break to the downside further confirms with more daily candle closes below 1970, then we would likely see a drop down towards the next Fibonacci level of support, which is sitting at around 1870 to 1880. But we also have some support at around 1.9k. And so like I said in my last video here on the channel, that is potentially where we are going to head next, down towards around 1.9k, which is where the next support is sitting at. And as for resistance, we could potentially now find resistance in this area right here, sitting in between around $2,000 to 2030. And once again, we also have that higher level of resistance closer towards around 2130 to 2150. And as for the daily Ethereum price oscillators, as I've said recently on the channel, these are beginning to flip a little bit more bearish, showing a lack in bullish momentum. Because first of all, the daily Ethereum RSI over the last couple of days has formed a slightly new lower low below this previous low just here after cooling off from overbought territories. And on top of that, if you're looking at the daily Ethereum MACD, just recently over the last one day, this has now crossed in the bearish direction if you're looking at the histogram, which once again is a signal telling us that some more bearish momentum is potentially beginning to build up here, at least in the short term, which once again is another signal pointing towards a lack in bullish momentum and potentially a bit of a pause or setback from this bullish trend happening here in the short term. But with that being said, if you're zooming into the 8-hour ETH to US dollar chart, we can see a possible hidden bullish divergence forming again, because at least for now, as of recording this video, the price of ETH is still in a higher low formation, while the RSI is of course still in lower lows. And so all we need to see to confirm this new hidden bullish divergence is basically see some sort of bounce anytime above this low right here. So if we see a bounce before hitting around 1860 approximately, then obviously that would mean another higher low in the price of ETH, while the RSI has already confirmed lower lows on the 8-hour time frame, which would be confirming a new hidden bullish divergence. But at least for now, this potential divergence is not yet confirmed because we have not yet actually confirmed the higher low in place in the price action. And so overall, because this is not yet confirmed, in the shorter term, we are starting to look a little bit more bearish, basically lacking that bullish momentum in the short term. But remember, on the much larger time frames, like the weekly chart, for example, the price of ETH is still forming a large bullish pattern. So overall, we are looking bullish on the larger time frames. It's just in the short term, we're losing bullish momentum and seeing a bit of a pullback. But anyway, getting into the Solana part of this video, this is on the 3-day Solana to US dollar chart. And technically speaking, we still have a price target at around $71 to $72. And so far, the price of Solana has gotten to around $68 to $69. And so obviously we've gotten very close to that technical price target. And so like I said in my last video here on the channel, considering the price is very close to the price target, very close to major resistance, and also we've already seen a lot of bullish price action, and the RSI is extremely overbought on the 3-day time frame. Due to all of those factors, as I said in my last video here on the channel, there is actually quite a lot of risk if you were to go very heavy into Solana right now, because remember, the entire idea of this is to buy low and sell high, not the other way around. So of course, if you're buying up here, there is quite a decent risk of a potential pullback, and obviously that would lose you money if you're going in heavy right now. But if we do potentially see that pullback and we cool off some of these price oscillators, like we cool off the RSI and we basically reset, getting ready for another leg to the upside, of course, that could be a decent buying opportunity once we pull back a little bit. We just need to keep it realistic and expect some pullbacks here and there rather than up only. And in fact, if you're zooming into the shorter term, looking at the 4-hour Solana to US dollar chart, we can see this short-term bearish divergence that I talked about in my last video is obviously playing out as expected, because we clearly have confirmed higher highs in the price in the candle closes while confirming lower highs in the RSI on the 4-hour time frame. And so once again, like I said on my last video, this could potentially result in a pullback, because the most likely scenarios from a bearish divergence are either choppy sideways price action, if not a pullback in the shorter term. And so once again, due to this being active right now and playing out, it's possible we could continue to see a little bit more of a pullback, or at the very least a sideways consolidation, basically a pause or a setback from that bullish trend. But remember, even if we do end up seeing a short-term pullback, that doesn't necessarily fully reverse the bullish trend on the larger timeframes. For example, it's possible to see a short-term pullback on smaller timeframes, which will just form a higher low on larger timeframes and continue the larger bullish trend later on. That is a possibility. But it is clear that right now in the short term, once again, really the overall crypto market, a lot of cryptos, Bitcoin, ETH, Solana, and other cryptos as well, are losing some steam in the short term. We're due to see either at the very least, once again, a consolidation, if not a pullback that is healthy for markets. But either way, whether you think the price is going to pull back further, chop around sideways, or continue in the bullish direction, you can make money in either of those scenarios by watching these videos popping up right here on your screen. The video in the top left shows you how to make money if the price is bullish or bearish using AI, and the video in the bottom left shows you how you can easily profit from choppy sideways price action. But anyway, that is everything that I have to say for today. I really hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next video.